It is that time again. Happy first day of July. It is my birthday month, and I am back with the wonderful Carly Whorton for our monthly energy chat for July. First, we take a moment to honor and reflect on how the energy that we discussed for June showed up in our lives over the course of the last month. Then I share the oracle card that I pulled for the month of July and how the mythological story of the Selkie Woman illustrates the themes that are so potent during this season. Carly then guides us through all of the major astrological events and transits that are happening in July, and it's a big moment. As Carly explains, July is a powerful bridge, and we are being asked to explore: which of our two wolves are we feeding? Where do we need to re-examine and reprioritize our needs? Where are we placing acceptance above freedom? Are we nurturing past versions of ourselves or the version that we are becoming? And are we honoring all parts of ourselves in that process? Are we using our personal power to serve ego or collective consciousness? This episode explains why we are entering into double king energy and what Hermione can teach us about freeing the dragon. July challenges us to make our desires bigger than our need for approval and offers a reminder that external validation does not equal security. I'm so appreciative of you sharing your time with me and with Carly and allowing us to be a part of your day. Thank you so much for listening. Welcome back to the Self-Care Sermon Podcast. I'm your host, Coco, and this is your sanctuary where we discuss self-love and self-care practices meant to amplify your authentic radiance. After working in the beauty industry for over 20 years as a certified makeup artist and licensed esthetician, and later becoming certified as an Ayurvedic health instructor, I take a holistic view on self-care. I want to empower you to release the pressures surrounding the endless and unfulfilling search of how to be outwardly beautiful, and instead I want to inspire you to create a life that is full of beauty. It's already been another month. I feel like this is just going to be what we keep saying every month, but I don't know if it's that we're doing these calls now, this series, that it's becoming more apparent to me how fast the months are going. But when you texted me a couple days ago and we're like, oh, I can't wait for our conversation, I'm like, me too, but I can't believe our conversation's here. So
it's time.
It's time. And I think something that I really emphasize on my podcast, and I think you really like to do this as well, is make sure that we're looking back at where we've come from. When I look at other podcasters who do something similar, where they're looking at the month ahead and looking at the energy of the month ahead, sometimes I just feel like there's this gap missing when they don't look back at the month before, and we're just constantly looking forward. But something that I really emphasize on this podcast is making sure we remember to take that pause and look back. And so I jotted down some notes. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this because I know that we have so much to cover for July, but I think doing a quick June recap would be very beneficial for everybody. So I went through our June episode, and some of the key points that we talked about were the question that we asked was, why am I here? Knowing our GPS location, knowing where we're at, and then also knowing our destination. What's our North Star? Do we even know how we got to where we are? And do we even know where we want to go? And so asking that question, why am I here? And then the card that we pulled was the waterfall card, which I posted on my Instagram for accountability. I did bring that card to work, so it is sitting at my desk. But the waterfall card was really asking us, like, what are we open and available for? What are we receiving? What are we open to? So some of those themes that we talked about were living a life on purpose, knowing that we are spending this time no matter what. And so are we intentionally choosing to live and being conscious of how we're spending our time and energy and what we're being available for. June, I feel like, really offered us this portal to come home, which I think is going to translate really beautifully into July. But moving a lot from our mind to our heart, which again, as we were moving from Gemini season to Cancer season in late June, really embodying that transition. June offered us an opportunity to choose what it is that we're available for, take up more space, be unapologetic, take our role as a leader, and to claim our power. And so I want to just ask you, kind of thinking about that energy that we were talking about to look ahead to in June, how did that show up for you? And I also need to say happy belated birthday to Carly because it was
Thank
also your
you.
birthday in June.
It
And we did
was.
not talk about that on the last episode.
That's
So
okay. That's
happy
okay.
birthday to you. But
Thank
how
you.
did that show up for you in June?
June was a whopper of a month for me personally. I feel like it actually goes really hand in hand with what July is bringing. And so, same, I love that we start these conversations for next month by taking a moment to like track our current location now that we've lived through the month of June. And to be fair, we're recording this on June 27th, so we still have a few more days. And the last few days of June themselves are like, I'll say July is starting off with a bang,
Mm,
like a big one. And we'll get into that more. But I think the preparation, like if you think about building a fire, um, you don't like strike the match first. That's not the first step. Like first you like build the main logs and then you put in like your lighter material, like the paper or the smaller twigs that you're gonna burn, the leaves, get all that situated, and then you add the flame and it catches. And June was building the structure, and July has a flame that's like, oh my God,
mm,
okay. So for me, um, June was a coming home. I think that's a really good way to put it. And like through June, literally up to the last day, um, Jupiter has been finishing its 13 months in Cancer. And so, literally coming home, we think about like the beginning of June of 2025 to now, that was Jupiter in Cancer. So, taking even a bigger moment to look back at like the last 13 months, because I know you and I both, like the last year, we literally moved where we live, like which changed our daily routine. It changed who we see on a daily basis. Like it changed a lot of things just by changing our physical home address. And so like there we are, like on that parallel trajectory that we so often find ourselves side by side. Um, so yeah, like I think as we get into like what June was for me, like the quote I wrote down, one of the many that I wrote down for July that I think has already been setting itself up through June is like, with great power comes great responsibility. And when we have the power to be who we really are and to be honest, what you end up responsible for is people's reactions to that. And a huge thing that's coming with July and August astrology is about being seen, being available to be visible and to be seen. And I think in June, for me at least, I took steps of like trusting my power, taking my role as leader, stepping forward. And it was so interesting because in some cases I was met with, that's genius. Okay, like that's so much more developed than I could have ever done. Wow. Like some people were like in awe of the truth and the leadership that I'm able to provide. And exactly on the other hand, others were critical and not a fan of me being in my power and telling my honest truth in a moment. My authenticity was not rewarded. And so just this morning, I was listening to something that was talking about like when we will have the courage to speak our truth, we express ourselves with that like freedom and granting ourselves permission to say what is real. And we must make sure that we're detached from what comes back, because what comes back is not a reflection of you, it's a reflection of the other person. Like what I heard when this person is like, that's a stroke of genius, like that's incredible, that's well developed, like wow, that's better than I could have done. What I hear is like almost like a grounded security in knowing who that person, like they know who they are, and they recognize that I am something that is not what they are, and they have so much appreciation for themselves and what they are that they're able to extend that appreciation to me even though I'm different. And in the other, like in the flip side, I got to see like when people weren't a fan of my authenticity, same, like they're confessing something about who they are. What comes back is not information about you, it's information about the other person. And so to separate, I feel like this month of June was about a separation. It was about like getting really clear on who do I think I am, right? Because the world has billions of opinions of who they think I am, and they're all different. The reviews are mixed. Some people love it, some people hate it. Okay, what do I think? Right? Like how I'm going to show up and how I'm going to navigate and make my choices. And like I wake up in the morning, what do I do with my day? That's going to be a reflection of who I think I am. And how available is my self concept for other people's like co-creation? Like, is this a group project? Because I don't think it is. Like, I think I get to decide. And I think the fact that you love it, I love that for us. We're going to have some really interesting conversations. The fact that you don't like it, that's really interesting. Like, tell me, when was the first time you remember being scared of your own power? Like, none of it's about me. And so that separation between who am I and what do other people think I am, and to be able to be with, to not reject any of it, to be available and present with all of it, but also to not internalize the feedback that comes from the outside. We can use it to navigate. It's not useful, right? I love useful things, but it's also not your self-concept. That's not what it's for. It's not a brick to put in that wall, Like so it was a bit of a roller coaster, I would say, emotionally speaking, but also incredibly clarifying. And I feel like at the end of the month now, I am standing on more solid ground than I ever have. And I have like deeper roots underneath me, anchoring me into myself. And so that's like the beginning for July, and
Mhm.
what's coming next, which requires those deeper roots. So the process is never off track, other people not liking what I'm doing. Like, unfortunately, sometimes that's required. Other people not understanding or not believing or whatever. Like, sometimes it's required. Like, that's the useful material, the raw material that becomes our ability to validate ourselves. So that was quite a little role that I got on. And I would love to hear, like, same, like, how was June for you and coming to the end of the month?
Yeah. You just saying that, it made me laugh when you were like, well, we're still in June. And I was like, oh, yeah, I don't even know. Like, if this tells you anything about how June was for me, I don't even know what day it is. I don't even know that we're still in June.
That's
And
fine.
yet, yeah. So that made me laugh. But
That's funny.
you are going to love the card that I pulled for July because you just set us up perfectly for it. And so I'll share my June recap, but then I think we should set the energy with the card that I pulled for the month because
Great.
we're there, we're in it right now. But June for me was, thinking about what am I available to receive and why am I here? Looking back at those big questions that we were sitting with in June, it was big for me. The two things that immediately come to mind are the fact that I celebrated my 100th episode of the podcast, which was huge. As you know, and as I did a whole episode on this, that was my goal when I set out to start the podcast was I don't get to decide if I'm good at it, bad at it, if I like it, if I don't like it, just do 100 episodes. That's it. And so thinking about that in the context of why am I here, looking at that, it was really just this noticing of how much happened in 100 episodes in my life. I mean, my life completely and utterly unraveling and looking completely different. And all of the things that happened during this 100 episodes, these 100 weeks, is mind boggling. But also seeing how it just was one episode and one step at a time, which was really, it was really medicinal for me to reflect on that and just remember it is one step at a time. And so that was a big thing for me. And then I also did a podcast episode on this with my chronic pain and some information I got from my doctor last week, and really understanding the severity of my chronic pain and its origin in my neck and all that. I have a whole episode on that, so I won't go into it here, but it was a major wake up call for me, as I had shared with you privately off camera, where I realized just how much I've been gaslighting myself, abandoning myself for the sake of just putting on a smile and people pleasing and going to work and taking care of other people and not inconveniencing anyone. And I recognized the way that it showed up in my relationship and our separation because of all of this resentment that I was harboring because I felt like I never had an out with my pain, but I wasn't speaking to it. And so then to have reflected back to me, you are in pain. Something is multiple somethings are very wrong with your neck. We need to treat this. This is what this requires of you. It really was that portal to come home, that portal to come back to myself and just say, wow, my energy's been scattered. And I know there's so many people listening. I would venture to say, in particular, women who have that same sense of just our energy is so scattered because so much of our worth is tied up into what we do and how we do it for other people in our lives. And
Caretaking.
so
Yeah.
caretaking, yeah.
Yeah.
And so really, I've been in this sense very similarly to you, where it's now looking back at myself and just pulling back some of those fragmented pieces of self and bringing them back home and setting up this foundation, exactly the same energy for now. What do I want to move forward as? Like, how am I going to show up moving forward? And that is what I want to bring into our card pool for July. So, as always, every month I have been pulling an oracle card just to kind of tune into and sense the energy of the month to come. And so when I sat in meditation, the question that I asked my guides is, what does the collective need to know about embodying self-care in the month of July? And I've used this deck before on this podcast. I think I used it for May. It's Rebecca Campbell's Healing Waters Oracle deck. It is one that I've shared very close to my heart. Being Cancer season, this water sign, this energy, it just felt really good to use this Healing Waters deck today. And the card that I pulled, without any surprise, is perfect. I pulled the Selkie card, and I'll read the guidebook, which talks about what a Selkie is. But the card itself, it has this creature underwater that looks like a seal, and this woman emerging sort of towards the surface of the water. You can see the depths of the water, but you can also see the sunlight coming through the top of the water. Is this energy of lightness, of expansion, of growth. And the card itself says, come out of hiding, embrace who you really are. And I love when I pull this card. It's really a wake up call for me. And I'm going to read the guidebook, and I already see you smiling because it is so on point for what we've been talking about and moving through this energy of June and thinking about how that was our portal to come home. And I'm just going to read the guidebook and then I'll continue. It says, there are many thoughts about what the ancient story of the seal people or Selkies signifies. But for me, again, speaking as Rebecca Campbell, it's about the masks we wear, things being taken from us, how we hide parts of ourselves, the longing for home, the call to be wild and free, embracing our true self, answering the call deep within, and sharing our true voice. In Celtic, Scandinavian, and Icelandic mythology, there are different versions of the stories. But here's one example. A man finds a Selkie, or a seal, woman on the beach. He steals her skin, without which she can't return to the sea. He hides it and convinces her to become his wife. The Selkie woman feels the ocean calling to her deep within and yearns for it daily. The couple lead a normal human life and have children, but eventually the Selkie finds her hidden skin and returns to her home in the sea. It's time to come out of hiding, to show the world who you truly are, to embrace your uniqueness, your weirdness, your you-ness, to swim freely in the ocean of your life. How are you being called to embrace who you truly are? Are there ways that you're hiding your unique light from the world? How can you embrace even more of who you truly are? Are there ways that you're not showing up as your full, true self in your life or in your relationships? How are you being called to share your voice? Where do you feel held captive? What do you need to do to feel free? And how can you embrace who you truly are? And even reading that, even though I've pulled this card many, many times for myself, I still get chills. And the immediate message that came through me as I pulled this card and tuning into that question, how can we as a collective embody self-care in the month of July? The words that came to me were come home, which is what we're talking about. And thinking about the month of July, we just started Cancer season, Cancer sun here, and we're going to be transitioning into Leo towards the end of the month. We just came out of summer solstice and I did a whole episode on that and reclaiming your light. And so this card just feels really perfect because coming out of solstice, thinking about this energy for July, it's really about finding sanctuary within ourself. It's about finding comfort in our own skin. It's about the confidence within our own bodies and our own beings and coming home to that truth and embodying it, which is everything that, you were already setting up and talking about what you're feeling and very much what I'm feeling. And so I think June has created this portal and now we're really being asked to step through it. In other words, you were saying we're setting up the scene for the fire and now July will ignite that spark.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just thinking about June Cancer season, to me, I picture it as that foundation, that home, that sanctuary. And now how do we fully step over that threshold of that home and embody that space truly? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on the card, but also just, I know there's a lot of transitions happening in July and things coming and lots of energy at the start of the month. We're recording this on June 27th. We've got a full moon on the 29th. We've got Mercury retrograde starting on the 29th. I know last month you set us up talking about the nodes transitioning, Jupiter and Leo. There's a lot. And so
there's so much. Yes.
Yeah, how do you see this theme showing up?
Okay. So I love where you ended up at the end of the card. I love the whole card, but like those words that came to you of like, come home. Like it's time to find that sanctuary within yourself. And I think, we've been hearing that call and like feeling that pull for a long time. Okay. Like maybe all of Jupiter in Cancer, that call of like your real home is somewhere else. Like it would be super interesting. Like I know one of my friends has started listening to your podcast since I've been on here these last few months, and she's moving this weekend. So like literally Jupiter in Cancer, like you moving somewhere else and how that changes your life and like come home reminds me of like your authentic home address and how like truly like the ley lines of the earth and like the energetic grid of the planet itself, like the energy in different places is different. So like I think Jupiter in Cancer, like it was meant to align us closer or possibly land us in our authentic home address, like our true home. And as Jupiter moves into Leo, I believe on June 30th. So like it's like Mercury retrograde, Capricorn full moon, Jupiter and Leo all within like 36 hours of each other. And so, yeah, the beginning of this week, like right before this episode gets posted, is this huge like energetic shift that we're right now sitting in like the beginning lead up point to. But I think like the bridge that's happening, July is the bridge, okay? The bridge, I would say, between June and before and August and going forward. There's this month of July. And I want to revisit real quick about like what we talked about in that May episode when we very first started doing this series, which is like astrology is just a set of potentials. And so every single person with their unique chart and their unique reason for being here, like everybody's got their own Earth School curriculum. And so the shifting archetypes of the planets and the energy that's playing itself out, it's meant to affect us all differently. But these themes of coming home, you know, for you and I, it was a literal move. For other people, it might have been psychological or like a work thing, or, you know, you just never know based on where somebody's Cancer energy falls in their chart. But this bridge month is about obviously like working our way towards the future. And what I want to really slow down around is the why that's driving, like, it is time to come home. It's time to find the sanctuary inside of yourself. And I want to reflect and amplify, like, what a power move that is, because basically what you're saying is like you're shedding the need for external validation. You're shedding your need for the security that the world used to provide. You don't need it anymore. You've got your own. You've got a sanctuary that lives in your heart that you can go into anytime, any day. It belongs to you. It's yours. Like it's the truest wealth that any of us possess is that ability to find that peace inside of ourselves, that comfort inside of ourselves. And it reminds me of like what I was sharing about my month of June, where some people loved it, some people the opposite of loved it, you know? And that's why the inner sanctuary matters so much. Because what would you do if you knew that there's no threat, there's no danger? Like if your sense of like home and comfort and safety and security lives in your heart space and is therefore somewhat untouchable to the outside world, like what would you risk? What big swing would you take? Who would you talk to? What would you ask them? You know, where would you go? What would you apply for? What would you do if you knew that like somebody else's external criticism isn't going to slow you down one bit? You know, that's on the ground and you have wings now. So you're up here 30,000 feet up, you barely hear what they say. You know, your path is unobstructed because the sanctuary lives within you. It's with you all the time. So the power move that it is to turn inward, find that place of inner stillness that lets the world be whatever the world feels the need to be. You know, none of that is your business. And so the part that I think is really getting highlighted here is like a phrase that I learned from like a business marketing coach. She drilled it into my brain over and over again. The phrase, so that you can what? Like it's my dream as far as like I love useful things. So the whole point of like so that you can what? Like come home so that you can what? Like what's it for? Like and maybe that's even just the question for the month of July is like this pondering of like what does that get you?
Mhm.
When you have a sanctuary that is inside of you that no one can keep you away from, what is that for? And I think for every single person, it's going to be a slightly different answer. But I see like just an explosion of freedom, an explosion of your own permission field in all sorts of crazy directions that, like, just even very recently you would have said, oh, I could never. But
Mhm.
when you really look at like what's stopping you from doing that, it's a fear about what somebody else is going to think. It's a
Yeah.
fear about some kind of external opinion or lack of validation or, whatever. Like I'm hearing like somebody who has always thought about like starting a YouTube channel, for example, and they're hounded by thoughts of like people make fun of me or they'll think I'm stupid or they'll think I, sound dumb or like they won't watch. Nobody asked me to make this. Nobody wants to hear what I have to say. Like, and they're just all of these things. But like if you had this sanctuary inside of yourself where you felt home and safe and secure and loved unconditionally, no matter what, kind of like what you were saying about your podcast, the goal was never like, I'm going to do it until I have 1 million subscribers. Like,
Yeah.
no, it's like, I'm going to do it no matter what for 100 episodes. That's the part I can control, is how I show up and what I choose to do. And other people watching or not watching or liking it or not liking it, none of that is the point. Your heart's desire, I think, is the point. And so when we talk about freedom, again, like freedom of what? Like freedom of your heart's desire to get to manifest itself. Okay, so there's so much depth that we can go into here, but I am going to just stop there and open it up for reflections and let's build, let's weave.
It's so powerful. It's so true. It does just feel like it's time. And I know so many people in my life are feeling the same energy of it's just time. It's time to stop all the excess noise. I need to come back to self. And what does self need? And how do I nourish myself? And what does that look like? And what does a sanctuary within myself even mean? And I think you touched on an important point where this could be the physical address that you live, the sanctuary. I mean, even for me, I've had this realization of, wow, I've been in my place for almost a year, which is something I'm really processing. It's very hard for me to believe that I've been here for almost a year and been through my separation for almost a year and how much has unfolded through this year. And so just the last couple of days, I've gotten like a little lamp that I like and a little mirror that I like, where I'm just trying to make this physical space my home that feels more reflective of me. And I'm not worried about if all of my pieces match together or everything's perfectly curated, or if we get back together and move into a new space together, if this is going to be a piece of decor that comes with us as a unit. I'm not thinking about any of that. I'm just coming back home to this moment and what feels good right now and what feels nourishing to me. And very much that piece of the podcast, I think, is an excellent example because, I just started putting these on YouTube. I have no clue what I'm doing at all. I thought I would have so many things figured out after 100 episodes. And the point is, I don't. The point is like, hit record, do a little bit of cleanup and hit publish and hope for the best. And it's funny because I published an episode that I did yesterday and I put it on YouTube and I was like watching it on YouTube. And at the very end, like the closing, that's supposed to just be my podcast cover art. There's like a black screen over it. And I'm like, you know what? Don't care. Don't care.
It's fine.
And it is just coming back to that space of my gosh, there's just so much that we give away to other people. And it's so much easier said than done. I know that so many of us crave this freedom, but it's very hard to embody it. And so I think it just goes back to that podcast example of just do the next thing and don't set the goal to be a metric that depends on somebody else. I didn't set my podcast goal to be something that was influenced by anybody else. This number of listeners, a sponsorship, a whatever, this many likes. It was just what I could control.
Hmm.
And so I think that that is very much the space that we're at where things are going to be moving pretty quickly, from my understanding, with the transits
Hmm.
and things that are coming up, where what is in my realm of control, what feels good to me, and how do I nourish myself? And I
Hmm.
just think that theme is going to continue to show up for us. And it's not in the grandiose moments, it's just choosing the next right action that feels good to me and feels authentic to me.
Yes, one of the questions that came up as I was thinking about July is how do I nurture the version of myself that I'm becoming?
Mm,
Because every new version of ourself has different needs. You know, like if you imagine, I recently started working out with a personal trainer, and so I've been eating a lot more
yeah.
because before I wasn't moving hardly at all. And wouldn't you know it, that's not awesome for a speedy metabolism. And so my need for food was like this much. And now that I'm exercising, like I wake up hungry. I eat like 3 times before it's even noon. And when I wasn't exercising, I didn't like even at noon or 1 sometimes I'm like kind of force feeding myself because I'm not even really hungry yet. So like this new version of myself has different needs. And so my daily life, my lifestyle, how I listen to my body and how I respond and the things I do for it are different because this is a different version of me. You know, when we ask ourselves a question like, what do I need? I think that's like one of those that's it's worth sitting with for just a second and like let that stone sink to the bottom of the pond because the question sounds easy and I promise you it is so complex because who is you? You know, like if you're a fan of internal parts work or like internal family systems, IFS, how many parts of you are there and do they all need the same thing or do they need something different? And there's also like the current version of you and what that version of you needs. And then there's the version that's emerging and there's the what that version needs. There's, you know, on and on and on with like, what do you need? And so that's why I say, like, how do you nurture the version of you who you are becoming,
Mm,
right? Not
yeah.
nurturing the version of you who you already are, because nurturing that version is going to keep that version alive and healthy and dominant. We feed the one we want to be. Like
Hmm.
I forget exactly where this comes from, but I heard it on a podcast again recently where like every person has two wolves inside of them. Like the wolf that is the light and the wolf that is the dark and like which wolf is going to win? The one that you feed. And so it's like there's our current self and there's the version that we are becoming and which one are we going to be? Whichever one we feed.
I
So,
just talked about the wolves with
oh
somebody
my
yesterday.
gosh.
I
No way.
just talked about the two wolves with somebody yesterday.
And which
And
one are you feeding?
right. Yep.
Yes.
And
Oh my
just being
gosh.
really conscious of that energy moment to moment of, and it's not, it's like you said, it's not easy. It seems like the question is easy, but when we're moving about our lives, which are so fast paced, we're operating from these old systems. And
Hmm.
so I want to just offer that space of grace where this is not easy work. So don't punish yourselves in the times where you're catching yourself in those old loops because we're moving so quickly.
Hmm.
It's in the moments where you can find the pause and the awareness and the consciousness, celebrate that.
Yeah.
Because the more that you practice that, the easier it will become in the busy moments. And
Yes.
that's what meditation teaches us. And that's what mindfulness teaches us. And just celebrate the moments where you can consciously ask that question and make a decision about which wolf you are going to feed. And then give
Yes.
yourself grace in the moments where you're not.
Yes. And I think that's a brilliant point for the whole month of July and really for our whole lives. But we do have Mercury retrograde
Yeah.
happening during most of the month of July. Like we said, it kicks off right before the cap full moon that ends the month of June. And then Mercury stations direct around July 23rd. And basically, Mercury has made it all the way to the end of Cancer, station retrograde, go back to about 16 degrees of Cancer, I think, and then it's going to go direct. So, like, it's got two passes over the second half of Cancer.
Mm,
So, if you have any points or planets or placements 16 to 29, 59 of Cancer, those things are like really up for review that like I would say they're really in the spotlight of like that right there is the basis of the difference, like the divergence between the needs and the nurturing of your old self and the needs and the nurturing of your new self. Like, for
mm,
example, my IC or like the cusp of my fourth house is at 17. So I just was like, wow, like Mercury's going to go back like just far enough to like get over my IC, like the deepest root that I have, and then go forward over it again. And that's my fourth house. It's like that inner sanctuary kind of vibe that like really needs to be reviewed so that we can like come home so that we can like there is so much shining and visibility and free flying that needs to occur going forward, my future self, that like, the month of July, again, this bridge moment, it's like really taking the opportunity to sort through the
mm,
needs that you have, the ones that are being met, the ones that are not. Which wolf am I feeding? Like, which self am I nurturing? And that's up to me. That's part of what's inside of our control. That choice when we do slow down and get quiet and catch a moment of self awareness. So, yeah, Mercury retrograde in general, especially in Cancer in a water sign, is very much about turning inward and reviewing and looking back at the past. And especially where most of that retrograde is happening like in the sign that Jupiter just spent 13 months doing its thing and right now is kind of like in its big finish these last few days of June of like announcing like the takeaway of
mm,
these last 15 months of Jupiter in Cancer. What do you know now that you
mhm.
didn't know at the beginning of June 2025? And that's different for everybody. But again, now Mercury retrograde is going to ask you, like, okay, so now that we know that, now what?
Yeah.
So that you can what? Like, what's
Mhm.
that for? And it's a sorting tool. Which need is more dominant? And like an example I'm going to give you, and then I'm going to pause because this is kind of getting more into like the Leo part of like we've got Jupiter stepping into Leo the last day of June. So July is our first month of Jupiter in Leo. And at the end of July is when I looked up the dates. It's like July 28th or 29th is when the South Node enters Leo. So we have a month of Jupiter and Leo before the whole rest of the transit will have Jupiter and South Node, which is like a whole thing. So I want to go more into that. But like this example of needs. And like when we think about our needs, it works a lot like our values, where when needs are in competition with each other, when we have like, I need this and I need this. Like, for example, I need to be seen. I need connection to a group and to be seen by a group so that I have like that sense of security with the group. I also need freedom. And a lot of people, like pretty much humans, like we want freedom. We also want connection. And so at any given point, any individual, even like moment to moment for a single individual, it's like which one of those needs is higher? Because whichever one is higher, that's the one you're going to feed, and that's the self you're going to become. And so, what I see as we step through this like bridge of July is this Mercury retrograde is going to sort our needs and it's going to put the ones at the top that are the version of us that we are becoming. And it's going to have us acting and behaving in new ways because we're meeting new needs. We have to eat more food because we're exercising now. So, like, it's very logical, it makes total sense, but it also means that the old things, like, for example, like, if you've got that freedom or being seen, and like you've always chosen the safety of the group, like, if freedom becomes more important, then that means you're now willing to risk your connection to the group, right? Like I'm not willing to be seen and connected to a group if it costs me my freedom. So the equation is changing and it's happening internally for a lot of us. Again, I think it depends a little bit on where Cancer falls in your chart, but our needs, like that complexity underneath that question of what do you need? Identifying the need and what it is that would fill it, but then almost like taking another beat to be like, and which version of me needs that? Because
Yeah.
is it my safety seeking fearful inner child who just wants to crawl under the covers and like stay safe no matter what? Because we all have one of those. Or is it my lion hearted goddess warrior who came here for a fucking reason? Okay, and is no longer messing around. It's time. And so who do you want to be? Which wolf are you feeding? I freaking love that you were just talking about that yesterday.
Yeah. Mark Groves says that every day we're trying to make a choice between authenticity and belonging. And when
Yeah,
confronted with the two, we choose belonging over
most of
authenticity.
the time. Yes.
Yeah. And so I think that's a beautiful way to frame kind of this energy that we're coming into where we are going to continue to be confronted with that question. But I think that we are moving into a period of time where people are more questioning that authenticity piece of maybe I am okay setting down belonging for a minute. And what does this mean to belong? And what does it mean to self abandon to belong?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's coming more to light. And I love that you're talking about nurturing the version of you that you're becoming,
Mm-hmm.
because I do think that everywhere we go, everywhere we're showing up, all of these versions of ourselves are coming with us.
Mm-hmm.
The scared child, the insecure teenager, the abused early 20s, thinking of my own story, young woman to me now. And so when we're thinking about authenticity and we're thinking about nurturing that self, knowing that all of our parts are with us at all times, and every single one of those versions of me might have a different need or a
Mm-hmm.
different definition of authenticity or belonging or nurturing. But thinking then, hey, where do we as a collective, as a whole being, as a whole person, where is it that we're wanting to go? Who are we wanting to become? We are all safe to show up in that way and be that and nurture that version of ourselves and just bring our wholeness and our fullness. And I keep going back to that image of the Selkie and that story because it is just such a powerful illustration of being able to set down the parts of ourselves that no longer feel aligned, that feel off, and listening to that call of our soul and taking off the masks and coming home and being our full selves and nurturing that. And with Mercury retrograde, which I've done a few episodes on Mercury retrograde in the past, what's been coming through for me and my understanding of it being in Cancer this go round is the two words that keep coming up are memory and wisdom. And I think you touched on that beautifully, where we are going to have an opportunity. And I always talk about this with any Mercury retrograde. I think there's a lot of like fear tactics, clickbait out there of like, it's so scary and don't do this. And it's like very doom and gloom. And I try really hard in the episodes that I've done about it to reframe it where it's this just time to review and take a pause. And with Cancer and this energy, it's this time of, like you said, it's remembering. We're going through these big transits right now. So taking that moment to remember what
Mm-hmm.
we've been experiencing the last month, the last year, the last 18 months, and tapping back inward to our own wisdom, our own waters. I think of the womb, no matter what biological sex you are, that womb energy, that womb space that we all have, just going back to this inner wisdom, our inner waters, our inner knowing, and remembering and reviewing. Wisdom and memory are the two things that keep coming up for me with Mercury in Cancer. And so I would love to hear you talk about like what can we expect with this Jupiter into Leo transit and
Mm-hmm.
the node transit that you're talking about. What does
Mm-hmm.
this look like for us?
Mm-hmm. I think, okay, so I watched a video this morning that I think we should even put in the description box because it's the first time I've ever watched this guy. And he has a way. It's very authentic. He's a little weird, but it was very cool the way he did it. And he said that Jupiter in Leo is double king energy.
Mm.
Okay, because Jupiter's the king of the gods. It's the biggest one, biggest planet. Jupiter's the king of the gods. Leo is the king of the beasts, the lion, the king of the jungle. So Jupiter and Leo, you've got double king energy. Okay. And for a look back at like a more, I won't say like pure, but like a less interfered with version of Jupiter and Leo, the last time it happened was July of 2014 was when Jupiter went from Cancer to Leo. And then August of 2015 was when it went from Leo to Virgo. So July to August, 2014 to 2015. And I invite everyone to kind of like jot down those dates and just take a moment because did you or did you not make a decision or even multiple, a string of decisions during that time that changed your life in some kind of way?
1000%.
Okay.
1000%.
Okay. Because I got engaged, I bought a house with my fiance, and I canceled that wedding all while Jupiter was in Leo.
Mm.
And the dating of that guy was while Jupiter was in Cancer. Like it just all like kind of brought the whole thing into perspective as far as like Cancer being our family, our home, our comfort zone. I could really see where this dude that I picked in my mid to late 20s, like he was a lot like my upbringing, for
Mm.
better or for worse. He was my comfort zone. Okay. And that gave me a lot to sit with about what my childhood really was because holy shit, like, why was that comfortable ever? Okay. But it was. And when I got out of it, it was because of like, I canceled the wedding right before Jupiter went into Leo. And it was because I could see there's more than this. There's another version of me that, like, if I stay right here, I'm never going to be her. And it ended up being like like it was like a spiritual download, one of my very first clairaudient messages that said, you have to cancel the wedding.
Mm.
And the next day I told him, like, I can't marry you in 6 weeks. And so we ended up breaking up like shortly after that. But like when she was reading off those dates, I was just like, holy shit, like that's exact. Like, holy moly. So I'm curious, like, does what comes to the top of your head for 2014,
Mm.
2015? Like, what was in that window?
Bad window.
Oh
Similar.
man.
Bad relationship. My really bad relationship. Let's just say that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I had same thing, this very much moment of clarity. I can picture myself perfectly. And I was like, I gotta go. He's
Yeah.
gotta go.
Yeah.
And packed his bags for him. We got in my car. I dropped him off on the sidewalk at the airport and drove away. And it turned into everything. My restraining order. I mean, it really is like that was a huge monumental time in my life.
Wow.
Because then it was the restraining order, and that's when I got offline, and that's when I went into hiding and off social media, and like everything in my life changed from that
Yes.
point. That was a really transitional time in my life.
Yes. Yeah. I'll bet most people can look back and find that. And so I think, these are archetypes. And so every time Jupiter's in Leo, it's Jupiter's moving through the same part of your chart. So like the things that got activated, like Leo's mostly in my fifth house and fourth and fifth. And so it makes sense that like there was a buying of the house, there was like a romantic partner included. Like, I mean, it played out in my home situation and my like partnering and like trying to co-create a life with someone else. And I think about this time, Jupiter in Cancer, I dated someone for a big chunk of that transit that was reminiscent
Mm.
of the guy that I was engaged to. And this current version and we didn't make it to the end of the Jupiter transit to like get into Jupiter in Leo like I did with like that guy 12 years ago. Like, I wonder. Like if that relationship had continued, like how tangled up it could have become. But this time it didn't get off the ground like it did last time,
Hmm.
you know? And I think about kind of the same thing for you. Like your Jupiter in Cancer transit was very different this time than it was last time, you know? Like, because the Jupiter in Cancer would have been like 13, 14.
Yeah.
And, you know, we were both in relationship that was a reflection of our past, not a reflection of the future. And this time, our discernment around what is the past and what is the future, and our ability to recognize that's past, that's not future. I need to turn around and go the other way. Like, I was way stronger and way clearer on what do I need, but not the past version of me, the comfort seeking version of me, the nostalgic, like 30-year ago version of me, but this future version that's like this strong, badass leader, creator, can literally build a whole world out of like one little spark of energy. Like, what does she need from me? And so I feel like, you know, August of 2015 compared to June, July of 2026, I am such a different version of myself. So
Oh, yeah.
it's hard to tell, like, Jupiter and Leo this go round, like, what all's going to be included. But the fact is that, you know, almost first thing, Jupiter steps into Leo and starts making its sextile to Uranus, which is at 3 degrees of Gemini. That's also why I said that July starts off with a bang, because we also have Mars making its ingress into Gemini and conjoining Uranus. So Mars Uranus, like, that's explosive, explosive freedom. Okay. It's meant to like I think about that scene at in Harry Potter. It's like I think the last movie when they're in the basement of Gringotts and they find that big dragon who's there to like guard the tombs or whatever. And Hermione is just like sick that this thing is like being held captive down here. It's like gross to her. And so when they get stuck and they're like trying to figure out how to get their way out of there, Hermione has the idea to use her wand and zap the chain that's holding the dragon in place. And then Hermione, Ron, and Harry, they go jump on the dragon's back, and the dragon climbs up out of there and carries them to freedom. But Hermione didn't set herself free. She freed the dragon. I got chills. I spent
So
my
do I.
whole year 2025 was my year of freeing the dragon
Yeah.
because of that scene in that movie of like, you don't free yourself, you free the dragon, and then you hop on the dragon's back and you fly your way to freedom.
Yeah.
It's indirect, but it's still your power
Yes.
that set you free in the long run. But like, it's almost like that Pluto end of it, the Pluto and Aquarius end of it, that we're like working through a 20-year stint of Pluto and Aquarius. But that idea that like the collective good is more important than the individual good.
Hmm.
And yet it's not separate at all. Like in the most unified sense, it's the same thing. So, like, basically, in that Harry Potter scene, like, they weren't going to get out of there without freeing the dragon. You have to free everyone, and that's how you get free. So, yeah, it's just like all of these different pieces. So, anyway, so Jupiter enters Leo and instantly starts making that sextile to Uranus, Jupiter, Uranus, some kind of big something. And also, like pretty quickly, Jupiter makes the sextile to Neptune that's at the beginning of Aries. And then right after that, it sets up the perfect opposition with Pluto. So this Jupiter and Leo ingress is nothing like what it was last time, as far as like how much support there is. It's like basically the image I just got is like a rocket ship on a launch pad, and the rocket has its own like engines and own combustion that like when you push the button, it's going to fire off and it's going to create whatever, and that force is going to push you up. That's Jupiter entering Leo by itself. The Uranus sextile, the Neptune sextile or trine, I guess. I said sextile before. And the Pluto opposition, it's like that's like at the time of pushing the button that launches the rocket, you're also going to explode the ground
Mm-hmm.
underneath the launch pad. So it's like force pushing up under the force of pushing you up into the atmosphere because it's time.
Mhm.
Like it's non-negotiable. Pluto's involved, Uranus is involved. Like, we don't get to stay shackled and pretend like we're a victim because we're
Mhm.
not. We're the creator of our reality. We're an extension of God in human form. And it's time for us to know that. It's time for us to claim like the true safety and I want to say like immunity of having that inner sanctuary and like the swings, the risks that that allows you to take because
Mhm.
not that you're like untouchable, but that you have a source of security that is completely internal.
Yes.
So we are very supported at this time. And that's how I'm going to say it because, these forces, Uranus and Pluto both can be somewhat destructive towards the things that are keeping you stuck in
Mhm.
the life of the version that you are no longer supposed to be. And so the only I like to comfort myself and anyone else who's ever scared of Pluto, the lord of the underworld and like whatnot, but truly the only thing Pluto can touch and destroy are the things that are holding you back, the things that are keeping you apart from your power. So the only reason you would be afraid of Pluto is if you're actually afraid of your own power, which might be the most honest thing we can realize in the month of July, is
Mhm.
that we're doing things because we're scared of what the more powerful version of us would be or would look like or would do. Like there's a lot to sift through. So I think this month of July is kind of like I said, that bridge moment. We're
Mhm.
not in the old, we're not in the new. We're connecting the dots through that Mercury retrograde. Our rocket is blasting off, the ground underneath us is exploding, and it's kind of like there is no old world to go back to,
Mhm.
sort of thing. So there is only forward, which again, like it's forward towards who you came here to be. So none of it has to be scary, like we can be excited about these things and to ride the waves and like smooth out the turbulence as much as possible, come home to
Mm.
that inner sanctuary. That's truly what it's for, is to keep us safe in times like this.
That's beautiful. So many key points that I want to just really emphasize and create space for is I think that for me, speaking personally, and I know that many other people can probably relate to this, sometimes when we're talking about astrology or we're talking about the things that are going on in the cosmos or the energy at play or these special days or things like that, sometimes when I'm tuned in to what's going on, or I'm hearing about this stuff, or I'm seeing something on Instagram from somebody saying this is the most powerful day of the year, all of these things that get fed to us. Sometimes it can give me this sense of anxiety of, well, I don't feel that. I don't feel that. Oh my gosh, I'm going to miss out. I'm going to miss this opportunity. I like that energy will come up. And so, for anybody who's feeling that, as Carly and I are talking, I want to just really emphasize what we're both saying here is this is going on no matter what. And we talked a lot about that in the May episode, where this is going on no matter what. This is happening in the universe. And it's going to impact all of us no matter what. None of us are immune to it. And it's going to impact each one of us individually based on our own chart and our own transits and our own makeup. And all of these things are at play. And so, the really key piece that I want people to take out of this, if you are not feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't feel like I can free the dragon right now. I'm in the pit and I haven't even met the dragon yet. I'm still walking through the darkness of the tunnels. Anybody who's in that space, just know that this is still all at play, even if you don't feel connected to the energy. And there is that other piece happening where we're just asking to come home to ourselves. So the energy is still going to be going on, even if you don't feel it. The key is to keep finding that sanctuary in yourself. So if you are still in the depths of the tunnels, walking through the underground, trying to find the dang dragon, just know that in those tunnels in that darkness. And it's what I talked about on the solstice episode, is really coming back home to our sanctuary and our light and our truth and our authenticity, and nourishing who we want to become, even if we don't feel like her right now. And doing that is going to illuminate the next step and the
Hmm.
next step and the next step. Exactly like what we were talking about with the podcast and 100 episodes and
Hmm.
building the foundation. Everything is just one step forward. And so if you have no idea where the dragon is, let alone how to free it, let alone where you want it to fly you to, that's okay.
Hmm.
Nourishing yourself and cultivating that inner light and that inner sanctuary is going to reveal the next step. And that is all that you need to do if you're in that space where you just feel disconnected from maybe some of the pieces of the astrology that we're talking about. It's just coming back home, taking the next step, and knowing that it will lead you there when it's time to lead you there. You're not
Yes,
behind, you're not going to miss out. All of this is still at play. And the universe is so generous. As you're talking about, these things come back around and around and around. It's not
totally.
one and done. And it's not like a light switch that flips on and flips off. Time, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole of time, but you're not missing out. You're not behind. You're not too late. And so maybe you're ready to put your wand on the shackles of the dragon and hop on and ride off and feel this energy of the rocket and the earth exploding. But if you're still kind of navigating the darkness of the tunnels, that's okay too. You're still right on track. So I
Yes.
really wanted to speak that because you were weaving that in there. And so I just wanted to amplify that a little bit.
Pull that to the surface 100%. I I hold a belief personally when I, you know, am in the world. I know that like what's for me can't miss me.
100%.
So like I sometimes forget that other people have FOMO,
Yeah.
like where they worry that they're gonna miss it. And I'm like, that's not even possible. But like that's only my reality. So thank you for bringing that up. I guess what I will say is that astrology is a form of divination. Okay. So, like, we're making predictions, we're saying things about the future that, much like other people's opinions of me, it's a reflection of them. Like, the things that I predict about the future, it's a reflection of me, which is why you can watch all kinds of astrologers making all kinds of predictions. I've literally seen like the gamut of some astrologers saying July is going to be like this explosive, life-changing, earth-shattering month, and others that are like, it's way overhyped. It's never going to be like that. It's actually going to be quiet because like so many people are expecting the forest, and all that's going to happen is the seed of the
Mm,
first tree gets planted. So who the fuck knows
right.
what is actually going to happen? And I have a feeling that, again, this is where it goes back to like every single person is on their own journey. We all have our own reason for being here. And so, what exactly that looks like for you, I mean, everybody is going to have their own unique version, but like that analogy of like sometimes we're expecting the forest and it's only a seed. And so we think it didn't happen. But like truly, like if that seed had not gotten planted, like if I hadn't had the clairaudient message, you have to cancel your wedding and then cancel my wedding and live through the aftermath of all of that, like that was what set me free, like less than a year and a half later to leave corporate, become an entrepreneur. Like everything that has unfolded in the last decade was because I canceled my wedding.
Hmm.
So that seed, that one piece that of course was a bit of an explosion at the time, but I had no way of knowing like what the full ripple effect would be of setting myself free, like just even in that instant. So, it could be something as simple as like selling your car and getting a new one, like setting yourself free from something that's been in your life for a long time. And like, we don't know how something that simple can ripple forward into this big giant thing. But, the forest is truly inside the seed. So just, keeping an open mind as far as like not having specific expectations about what all of this is going to look like in the mundane, like in the 3D physical version, especially since Okay. Especially since we will also have all but 1 month of Jupiter and Leo will coexist with the South Node in Leo, right? We'll have the first month of just Jupiter, but Jupiter's getting zapped by Uranus and is opposing Pluto and is like just being hit from all sides, okay? Like as soon as it gets there. So, like, that to me feels a little bit like you're visible and you're on the end of like people aren't liking it. Like the reactions aren't kind necessarily, but the thing about it is like, you can quiet yourself or make yourself smaller so that you can be acceptable to others, but then you've lost yourself. Or you can allow yourself to be who you really are, and you might lose others, but you'll have you. And I think, unfortunately, I see that is a lot of what July is gonna be. It's like by the time we get to that Jupiter Pluto opposition, that can go a lot of different ways. And that's towards the end of July, right before it's like 9 days before the South Node enters. But like this idea of something gigantic, Jupiter Pluto like is like big money, big expansion, big investment, big. Some kind of resource is moving around that gives you more power. And I know I can see what that's like setting up in my life, and that literally big money is involved in the thing that I want to create, that I'm asking to be invested in, and how what I'm creating and how I'm allowing myself to be visible, and I'm searching out the stage. I'm trying to find like where's the stage that I can be seen. I want the spotlight, give it here. But what's it for?
Mm-hmm.
And if you've made it to that point because I need to be seen, because I have a need to like be seen and validated by other people, the criticism will likely be debilitating because it's meant to show you that the external validation is not the source of security. And the sooner we can let go of that, the more powerful we will become. And that's really truly in the highest good of the all. On the flip side, if you want to be on that stage because the thing that you want to create, the voice that you have to share, the story you want to tell is about heaven on earth for all of us. It's about something that transcends the individual ego and is coming from the super ego, which is like that Leo Aquarius axis of like the individual's ego being about self, the super ego being about the collective that we're all sharing, right? Like the human community of the earth is like the Aquarius super ego part, what's best for all of us. And if you're acting out of what's best for all of us and like individual empowerment across the board, and you're standing on stage, Jupiter Pluto is ready to crown you the double king and hand you a big pile of resources and say, go forth. Here's your power. Here's your responsibility. We're giving it to you because if not you, who else?
Mm-hmm.
You're clearly the best one to hold this power, to hold this responsibility, because you're leading us somewhere that's better for everyone. If you're trying to lead people somewhere that's better for you personally, there's a slapback coming that is not playing around, because individual empowerment, Pluto and Aquarius, is probably one of the most dominant evolutionary undercurrents of this time, is that the rise of individual sovereignty and empowerment. We don't need an external authority. We don't need someone to sign our permission slip. We don't need someone else to tell us that you're allowed to be your authentic self.
Yeah.
You get to say that to you. I was standing at the grocery store here a little bit ago, and I was talking to my mom, and this lady walked in and she's like, "Hey, hey, I never see you." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm a hermit, I think is the technical term." And she goes, "I think I'm that, if someone would let me be." And I knew she's talking about her husband. But I'm like, oh, you need a permission slip? Come on over here. I'll sign it for you. Like,
Yeah.
I can get you a permission slip to tell you that you're allowed to be a hermit. Like, who is this illusory external authority figure that's telling you you're not allowed? Because that's some bullshit.
Yeah.
And most likely, those are the kinds of illusions that Uranus zapping Jupiter, Jupiter getting up to that opposition with Pluto. It's like what ends up happening in a situation like that. I mean, it's it's inevitable and it's like clockwork. Like if you believe that you have an external authority figure, basically what blooms inside of you is a desire that's bigger than your respect for that authority figure.
Yep.
And so then the desire that you have, and then the person tries to say no, and the desire is big enough that you shed your need for that person's approval. And
Mm-hmm.
typically the relationship ends up being kind of collateral damage because it's built on the fact that this person has power and you don't. But your bigger desire is like putting the power inside of you because you want it so bad. And that's Pluto. Pluto is about our deepest desires and the things that drive us forward, the things that like you can't settle and just forget about it. Kind of like the skin that got
Yeah.
stolen in the card story. And like she did it, she went along with it for a while, but as soon as she found that skin, she was back in the water.
Right.
Jupiter, Pluto. It's like that. Like either you already set yourself free and here's your crown, or you're pretending that you have an authority figure holding you back and here's your gigantic desire, your rocket ship to ride up out of that illusion where that
Mm-hmm.
person no longer has power over you. So I think the South Node element, just to kind of like one last sentence on that, the South Node element is our past life, our karma, the unconscious, unfinished business from past lives. And it tends to be about like kind of the shadow side of the energy that it's in. And the more we can clear the shadow of the South Node energy, the more space we have available for an expansion of whatever energy the North Node is pointing at. So again, the North Node is pointing at this Pluto and Aquarius, this individual sovereignty and empowerment, where like literally every individual is an extension of God. So who's signing whose permission slips? Like, I don't get it. What's that for? That's weird. The South Node, like, it wants you to be seen for the highest good of the all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that is probably the primary force of that, like thrust of that energy. Another one that's coming to mind that really resonated was like a North Node in Aquarius does not pedestalize anyone else. They are their own authority and they're acting as their own authority on behalf of the highest good of the all. So again, it's like about claiming that and doing it for this super ego collective good. Like as soon as we start chasing our own kind of ego desires, this small self and what it wants, like it wants attention or validation or, likes or how many people hearted my post or like whatever that's about. It's those kinds of ego attachments that are needing to get broken up. And that's the South Node through Leo for 18 months, including most of this Jupiter and Leo transit. So it's like a tightrope almost of like, instead of a stage, it's a tightrope. And like, if
I
you're,
was gonna say,
yeah, there's a balance, there's a fine line between why are you seeking the spotlight? You need to
mm,
be in it, but why are you there?
yeah,
And yeah, it's like set up as like I'm almost seeing like just a keyhole or like a hole in a needle, like
mm,
threading the needle, like trying to find the sweet spot in all of this, so to
yeah.
speak.
I got the image of walking the plank, but it's like you're out there on this edge, on this limb, leaving what you knew, potentially breaking relationships. If you're out on the plank, I think you've
It's kind of already
ruffled some
over, isn't it?
feathers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you already
But
know.
instead of a shark or an alligator being in the water waiting for you, you take the leap, you say goodbye to what you knew, you piss off all of these people, you're in trouble with them, but then a dolphin comes and swoops you up and like takes you to this magical island with your actual people. Like that's the vision that I have.
Yes,
And
yes.
so I think just what a beautiful potential there is for July and all of this energy. And I think, thank you for sharing all of what you know and your gifts with astrology and all of this knowledge that you have. It's a gift to be able to have you and share that. And I think all of us just kind of taking this message home is just come back to yourself, come back to your sanctuary, come back to your knowing, come back to your truth. Ask those questions about which wolf you're feeding and how you're nurturing the version of you that you're becoming. And
Mm-hmm.
the rest will unfold when you come from there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that come home message is so much more potent than any question we could leave people with because I do see turbulence, quite a lot of turbulence potentially in July, and especially amongst groups, the groups that we're a part of, like there are fractures that are becoming visible. And the raw material is always useful. Like every single bit of it is an ingredient that has nutrient of some kind. And the thing about it is, when the group breaks up, you have yourself or you don't. And this Mercury retrograde dance that we're going to do throughout July and into August, it's like, you know, helping you to realize the value of that inner peace and inner stability and the comfort and validation that you're able to give to yourself.
Mhm.
That as long as you have that, I mean, it's not that it doesn't hurt to have those kinds of, ripples in relationships. It still hurts, but it's like kind of like a Saturn kind of moment, which is part of this Mercury retrograde. Like, would you rather be depressed or exhausted? And probably exhausted. Depressed is way harder. And when we give up ourselves, it's more like that versus the pain that can come from potentially being unpopular for a moment with other people, but knowing that you acted inside of your own authenticity and integrity, and that's its own reward, and that reward hopefully that reward is bigger than the cost that it has inside of a social situation.
Thank you so much, my friend.
Yeah.
I love
Dude,
these episodes.
you are so welcome. Thank you for having me. I love it.
As always, I am so grateful for your presence with me, and I hope that my offering through this podcast is a nourishing act of self-care for each of you. Take what you need, share what you loved, and leave the rest. If you feel like offering a small gesture of kindness to yourself in return, you can always rate and review the podcast, and remember to subscribe so that you're first to be notified when I release new weekly episodes. You can also find me on Instagram at The Self-Care Sermon. I look forward to talking to you again soon. With love, Coco.